Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Well, good evening, and I hope that everyone is in great spirits. It is Monday. It is the 11th day of March, 2024. Can you believe that? We're already in the third month of the year. Time is indeed flying fast. I am Marissa Boyce, your host for this evening, and with me I have none other than Pastor Edison Vino, Minister Sinclair Brown, Minister Kevin, and we offer apologies for Bishop Mark, who is not with us this evening. So, gentlemen, please unmute your mics and feel free to greet our viewers.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Great to be back in the program. We have an interesting topic that we're going to look at. So glad to be here with the gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. I am Kevin, and I look forward to having a wonderful time in this discussion. I feel that there's going to be some very buzzing and popping questions, especially coming from Lady Marissa. So I look forward to that. I hope everyone enjoys the program tonight.
Blessed good evening in the name of Jesus. I pray that we will have a wonderful ministry this evening. Be educated and empowering.
That's right. So this evening we are talking about gaslighting. Quite interestingly, in the last few years, we've seen and heard a lot of, if I can say this, a lot of phrases being coined. And interestingly, this is one of those phrases, being a gaslighter, gaslighting. What does it really mean? And for those of you who are with us, good evening to all of you who are joining us. Feel free to let us know where you're listening from, viewing from, and joining us this evening. We are live also on Facebook and also on YouTube this evening. I will share the link momentarily so that many of you can feel free to share that with your friends and so forth as you join us. So this evening we are talking about gaslighting. And the discussion is very interesting. Now, before I give the definition of gaslighting, I want everyone here to give what they think their definition of gaslighting is. You know, just from the top of your head, you've had some time to do some research. What do you really think gaslighting is?
I thought Sinclair would have wanted to jump in there and go right ahead. But in terms of gaslighting, one of the things about it is that it is manipulative behavior. And it is making a person doubt themselves, another person, making them doubt their identity, making them doubt their feelings, their past, their history, the things that they do. So it creates a lot of doubt in the individual, leads them feeling disoriented, confused, leaves them feeling guilty, makes them feel like if they're always doing something wrong, they're always responsible for every wrong thing, and so on and so forth. So just to start off there, but it's really about manipulation.
Mr. Kevin, go right in.
Well, I'll just say, piggyback off what Pastor Edon said, and that is extreme manipulation. When one experiences gaslighting, it's you have self-doubt when that individual is done with you. It's possible that you could even struggle with identity, after you experience gaslighting in its extreme form. I also want to say that, and I hope I'm jumping ahead on myself, but I also want to say that I think everybody gaslight at some point in their lives.
You jumped ahead, but yeah, so that's going to happen.
I'll just say that for now. I just feel like it's extreme manipulation, and the perpetrator is always wanting to have the person experiencing gaslighting to doubt themselves at all times.
Go ahead, Minister Sinclair. Go ahead.
Yes, I've never gaslighted. Sorry.
Yeah, Sinclair, but that's all right.
No, no, when I look at this, I ain't not doing this. No, but because I was not familiar, but because I came across the term, in my head, I just going from the source of where it came from. You know, there was this play that had the whole gaslighting and where the husband would mess with the lights. I made his wife figure that she's going crazy, so it was an attempt for her to even doubt her what she was seeing, what she was thinking. So from that perspective, a gaslighter person is very, as I said, manipulative, very on a spectrum, almost sadistic to be quite honest. And there's one in being deceptive, but when this person is trying to make a person honestly believe that what they're seeing and believing is wrong in order to have a sense of control. And that is what, from my perspective, gaslighting is. And yeah, so you'll find it interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted everyone to share their understanding of what gaslighting is, because according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, gaslighting is psychological manipulation of a person, usually over an extended period of time, that causes that victim to question the validity of their own. And it's quite interesting that it talks about manipulation, because recently in our relation in our conversations in our show recently, I would often hear men say that women often seek to manipulate with their tears and so forth. So it is interesting that we talk about gaslighting now as a form of manipulation. So I'm going to throw it over to Sinclair right there. Do you agree? Do you not agree? You want to add more? You want to take away? Go ahead.
Sorry, just make sure you understand the question correctly.
Do you
Brain.
agree or disagree with this definition?
Oh, definitely. This is it, hands down. Um, because it's the level of manipulation, I think it is very high. It's not just a person telling a lie or, having a sense deceptive. This is a person being premeditated, meditated, basically
Meditating? Mhm.
premeditated, right? They're premeditated on doing this. It is strategic. It is planned. It is not. It is. They're doing this with the intention to make this person psychologically doubt themselves, like almost to send them crazy.
Mhm.
So this definition is very much a psychological manipulation, which is different than manipulation. This is psychological manipulation, and this definitely definition is where I agree. Yeah, 100%.
I
Do you
want to go
think?
back to
Go ahead.
what Minister Kevin would have said, because you can have degrees of gaslighting, and to some
Mhm.
extent, people demonstrate manipulative behavior. But building on what Sinclair has said, it's almost sadistic with some people. It's almost
Mhm.
chronic. They want a person they want to fully control a person, control how they're thinking, control how they're feeling, control how they perceive reality. So this is a real attempt to control the person to the point that a person can literally begin to doubt their sanity. They can begin to feel that they're crazy, and it can happen not only in relationships, but it can happen in a lot of different scenarios. It can happen in church, it can happen in the
Workplace.
workplace, wherever you
Mhm.
have relationships. You can have some very highly manipulated people, and so one of the things that we need to look at if we get there is why do some people gaslight? Because it's a real serious issue of emotional disturbance, and that's something that needs to be explored. Some of the reasons why people get into gaslighting behavior, but I'm sure all of us can think of examples where people were gaslit in relationships and really controlled people and destroyed people emotionally. In fact, destroy people in a number of different areas, not just emotionally, but you can gaslight to the extent that people question how they spend money, they question their faith, they could question a whole lot of things about who they are and what they do because of the extent of gaslighting.
All right. So go ahead, Minister Sinclair, Minister Kevin. Sorry, if you want to add anything.
I'll just add to say that when you experience gaslighting in that extreme form, at some point you lose our sense of self, where you're almost like a puppet to that individual.
Mm.
They whatever they tell you to do at this point is like you're so self-doubting that anything they tell you, you just automatically have to believe it, because at this point it's like all this time you're now questioning everything about you. So anything they say, you just go along with it.
You know what's interesting you said there about gaslighting is that I asked myself, how many people know that they're actually being preyed upon? How can someone understand that they're being preyed upon? Because as you said, it's not only about, as Minister Pastor Bino said, it's not only in um, relationships, man and woman, but it could be in the workplace, it could be in the church. So as you're saying, Kevin, when you talk about the psychological aspect of it, how many people can identify that this is happening to them? They are being preyed upon. This is actually being done to them. What are some of the signs that people can identify to know that, what, this is happening to me? I'm being preyed upon. I am losing all sense of my worth, my who I am, or my identity. I'm losing myself to someone, indicating that what is reality is what is happening. Because I feel that gaslighting is a real denial of a person's feelings. That's it for me, a real denial of a person's feelings. So I say to you, St. Clair, you keep stepping on my big toe all the time. That's not so. You're imagining things. That's not me. That's the floor I'm standing on. You are the person on the end receiving that if the pain is being inflicted on you. And then, it happens again. You're not real. You say to the person. So, how can a person really identify that this is happening to them? Go ahead, Sinclair. Are you muted?
Yeah, I was muted trying to find the microphone. Yeah. The truth of the matter, many times when you are being gaslit, some of you don't even know. Yeah, I think about it, it is gradual. You know what I mean? I said it's very psychologically manipulative. Um, it's like they talk about, if you put a frog in hot water, he's going to jump out. But if you put him in room temperature water and gradually warm the water, he will stay until he boils. Sometimes you find yourself in a relationship or a situation, as you said, be it work, church, family, marriage, relationship, and sometimes you cannot even see that this thing is happening because it becomes so normal that you've climatized to it. Yeah, somebody else coming and they can smell it, they can see it, and they're going like, "Whoa!" But some of you almost rationalize the behavior. Mom could be from this spectrum, right? But because she's mummy, you have to love her by extension. You embrace the fact you might not get along with her, but you don't recognize that your mother has never validated your feelings or your emotions. You don't have a voice. You can't do a lot of things, and denying events. You know what I mean? Going for some information you have, and so I can stay on track. But denying events, like something happened, and this person come and tell you it didn't happen, right? And you always have to almost bring facts and try to record the person, and it's like you're almost in a CSI situation, and God forbid if it's only you and them together, your reality becomes weird. So somebody who don't know that that is happening, trivializing your feelings that you mentioned just now, projecting onto others, twisting facts, blaming the victim is a big one, where you're the victim and they blame you for the behavior. Or if you didn't do this, I would not hit you. You know what I mean? If you didn't do this, then I would not shout and scream. If you didn't do this, I would not pelt the things. Yeah, that type of behavior, which is like always trying to project onto the victim. The victim doesn't have a voice. They're both the aggressor and the victim. And those are some of the things to indicate when we are being in gaslighting relationships.
As we talk about that, I want us to explore something quickly. It doesn't only happen in male-female relationships. It happens, as you said, Sinclair, children to parent, um, even a boss to maybe a worker, especially when it comes to an authoritarian type of relationship where someone seems to think they have more influence over another. It tends to happen. So if we can, gentlemen, share your thoughts of what it might look like in a parent-child relationship. So for persons who are listening saying, wow, maybe I did this. I didn't even realize I was doing this. Let's shed some light on that this evening. What do you think about it, gentlemen? What does it look like in a parent to child relationship? Gaslighting. Yeah, go ahead, Minister Singh. But Pastor Bino, go ahead.
No, no, I was thinking Sinclair should go ahead on this one because I'm still wrapping my mind around it. I think we've all been victims of gaslighting in terms of our parents, but I'm trying to think of the specific examples of it that would help to make it clear. So let me process my thoughts a little more. If anybody want to jump in there, yeah, go feel free.
Yeah, Kevin, jump in.
Oh, no, I mean, for me, um, like Pastor just said, it's a new thing for all of us. You know what I did earlier? So I decided to ask several people, both male and female, as to what they know about gaslighting. And it was um, astonishing to know that I asked about 6 men and the same amount of females. And it was only four, two of the females didn't know what is, while none of the men knew what gaslighting was really. And so I realized that it is one of these new terminologies that um, that seem to be quite prevalent nowadays. Now, if I was to say my parents gaslit me, boy, re- because the reality is that if we stop to think, we would have experienced gaslighting from our parents in some way, shape, or form, especially as Caribbean parents. They tell you what it is, and you don't have a voice. You have nothing to say. You can, if you try to even try to address the matter, that you feel that they said something that offend you, sometimes is a big deflection, or they tell you shut your mouth. Who are you? You're a child. You got to be this way and that way. And so they take away our voice to the point where we are just puppets for many of our parents. We just do as they say, and that is to me extreme manipulation because we could not question their authority. We could not question. We have an issue, an experience, but we could not say it to our parents. We could not say it out how we feel. So I definitely feel like our parents really gaslit us many times. But it was like Sinclair said earlier, it's gradual, it's a progression of just being intentional, right? In trying to manipulate you. And I feel like some of our parents, I don't know if they were being intentional to try to manipulate us, but more that this was the kind of discipline that was inflicted on them, and so they don't know any better, and they just do the same thing. Like we say, monkey see, monkey do. So they just do the same thing. They just continue the trend. It's now in this time when we're saying people are now more woke, and our children too have access to information. They are reading about these things, and so I could be able to I asked my mother, I asked my father, and I asked several adults, and they didn't know what gaslighting is. But I could ask my daughter, do you know what gaslighting is? And she's able to tell me. And I was like, the question that came to mind right away is, have I ever gaslit you? And she's like, no, dad. And I'm like, then I don't even know she'd be honest to say that I did. But the reality is that many of us didn't know what it is, but at the same time, we experienced it to the point where many of us are psychologically affected in making decisions for ourselves. We don't even trust our own judgment in making decisions for ourselves as adults because of how we were manipulated as children.
I definitely.
I want to jump in there quick, and hold the baton for some parents because, as you said, monkey see, monkey do. The reality is that they did what they, and then, and as we've evolved as parents, some of us have learned, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to follow this pattern. I want to set a new tone in my home. Maybe I want to, not to do this, not do that. So I just want to just, just hold straight for some of the parents there who are probably saying, not me, not me, but the reality is that is it. Yes, probably we did gaslit. We were gaslit at some point in time. But I think now that we've parenting, especially now we've understood better, and maybe a little better, we will not do those things. But I just want to hold strain for the parents. But I understand what you're saying, Kevin. Go ahead, Sinclair.
Yes, please. The thing about it is, as I said, for me, gaslighting mean is continuous. I say we may have used a statement, we may have done something, because to me that is not a full definition of gaslighting, right? I said going from the play where he's wanted to turn on the lights and play a prank or whatever, but this was continuous, right? Which means and the end result of this is I want you to doubt yourself, because when you say the lights were flickering, no, the light bill was paid. This is your mind, is your imagination. Look, it's still working, which means this is, I said, that's what I'm saying is different if I did something wrong, because parents, you don't come with a manual. You don't have a manual, there's no book that comes out the placenta when you birth the child. So we're not saying that we don't make mistakes. There's a difference. Gaslighting is a very manipulative strategy of control. Yes. So we all gonna make mistakes. My thing is maybe continue to psychologically do this. Yes, and sometimes we may be doing this and not know we're doing it because psychologically we came from a crazy environment and now we continue to do crazy. Okay. So many people would sit and say, my parents did this, but it served me well. And I said, well, that is not true because you're here. Right. And yeah, I know that's hard things to hear, but the truth of the matter is, if it was so good, would you do it to your children? And they say no, then it can't be good. We justify abuse. We make abuse sound like a good thing. Yeah. And I said, we have to stop. We have to start here and start to call abuse abuse. I don't care if it's your mother, your father, you don't care what us. Love your parents, and they did well. So we're not demonizing our parents. We're not demonizing our parents. However, we have to call somebody that's toxic, or not what we do. We pass on the toxicity because we justified it when we receive it. We are going to justify it when we give it. That is when that way the generational curse passes on, because when we're telling children, we're not giving the child a voice, we're not giving the child the ability to speak. You tell children things like, you're too sensitive, right? You're too sensitive, it's your own fault. You need help, you sound so crazy. You're remembering things wrong. Imagine you have two children and two children are saying, mommy, daddy, you said this, right? You said this, and yet you're looking at each other, the two children saying, I did not say. Something has to be, two people are not going to say that you said something. You know what I mean? Unless, what I mean? Is it the gospel? Like the reason that four people have the gospel from different perspective, people saying, these are four different people, 12 different people having a witnessing thing. 12 we can't have the same information. So when we have children, we instead of us listening for feedback, we pull, the vanguard of authoritarian perspective. I use your mother, I use your father, shut up in here, where you can't grow from there. Yeah. So some people think by apologizing to the child, you're taking away your authority. Actually, apologizing to your child gives you more authority because the child recognize you have rules that are above yourself. And that's one of the things a lot of parents know. If you have rules, you should submit to your rules. The children should be able to say, well, mom or dad, you said, the rule is don't use the cell phone after 9 o'clock, or don't use the phone when you're eating dinner or whatever. Is the child should be able to come to you and say, this is the rule. And that is going to help curb some of our manipulative behavior, because we can end up in gaslighting. But as parents, we can and we need to recognize that some of our statements, and for those that got toxic behavior, giving it to our children because we raised them up.
But
Go ahead, Kevin.
can I say though? Because for me, sometimes you want to tell the child say them too sensitive. Like how is it that we're saying that if it's a continuous action on the perpetrator part, then it becomes gaslighting. But sometimes our child might do a certain things or behave a certain way, and you really want to tell them, so then too sensitive, like, why you being like this? Why are you responding the way that I personally didn't see? And again, it's me imposing my personal feelings on the child. That's a part of gaslighting, right? But sometimes in your own self, you really don't see why this issue seems to escalate the way it has, and why is the child acting so sensitive. Is it wrong to call them out and say, boy, you're being too sensitive over this? How does that become gaslighting? My
Uh,
concern.
well, Kevin, I understand where you're going, and I agree with you. But the thing about gaslighting, if we go back to the definition, a lot of it has to do with manipulation and control, right? And
I
when
don't think
people are
parents
talking
want
to,
to manipulate. Yes.
yeah, yeah. When you're, for example, you can have a conversation with your child, and then it becomes a discussion. You're not invalidating how they're feeling, but you genuinely want to understand. So you're going to be empathetic. Whereas a gaslighter, they're not interested in hearing anything from you. All they will do is shut you down, and they will keep on shutting you down. But certainly in a context like that, where you have a legitimate concern, of course you're free to talk about it, but you still are wanting to be empathetic so that you can hear what they're feeling and giving them room to speak. Yeah, so I think that that's the difference. But if we go back a little bit, go back to some of the homes that people came up in. For example, you might have had situations where children were abused in the home. I mean, literally, physically, sexually, and then the parent is saying, no, this did never happen. They're saying, uncle did this. Oh no, uncle would never do that. You gotta be crazy. Or the boyfriend. They would say, well, oh no, the boyfriend would never touch you. He won't do that. You're making up stories. And so then you have a problem where the person isn't able to talk freely about the abuse because the person is not believed. Yeah, so there's so many different ways that gaslighting can happen. I know one lady, in looking at it from a marital perspective, she was in a relationship, and her husband controlled her in everything. She had no sense of identity, no sense of purpose, no sense of independence. He dictated everything. He dictated how the money was to be spent. He dictated when they would have sex, so everything. He controlled, and every aspect of her life was manipulated, and it was controlled, and it was determined. And the thing is, they were codependent. They were so intertwined that she had no identity. He would engage in adultery and so on, and then come back and say, "Nah, you're making this up. I ain't doing nothing. I ain't doing nothing." He will deny, and so then she began to doubt herself, and then she started to do all kinds of things to try to fit in with him and maintain the relationship and that kind of thing. So it was very toxic. But when you look at his background, you came to understand why he was the way he was, because a lot of people that gaslit, they came out of emotionally abusive homes where they were manipulated and controlled and abused, and so they inherited that became their defense mechanism. Where in order to survive, you have to learn how to become manipulative, and then from there, it keeps on going unless the cycle is broken somewhere. Yeah. So let me just show. I didn't get to see that comment, but yeah,
You turn off your mic, Pastor by, in the middle of your sentence.
Yeah, I
yeah.
just
Sorry,
turned
sorry. I
things.
was saying I didn't see the comment. I didn't
Yeah.
see the comment, but yeah, I'm saying it now.
All right.
Okay.
So here's my thing. Since we've talked about parents, the majority of gaslighting happens, as Pastor Bino says, man-woman relationship. The relationship where sometimes someone wants to inflict their authority over someone. And as you've said, and we must point out in that is that it happens on a continuous basis. It is not just a one-off event. As I explained, I gave an example. Maybe you're in a relationship and Sinclair is stepping on my toe, and I say, "But Sinclair, you're stepping on my toe." And Sinclair says, "No, that's all in your head." Like the man turning off. If you guys missed that story, I'm gonna ask Sinclair to briefly share it quickly, so you understand where I'm saying to Sinclair, you're stepping on my toe. Sinclair says, no, you're not. No, I'm not. But you're hurting me when you step on my toe, and you're saying, um, I'm not hurting you. I'm not hurting you. So
And the thing is, Marissa, the person is very convincing. They're
yes,
very convincing.
that is the
Yeah,
I
very
want to add it's
convincing.
crafty. They're very crafty at it. When you hear the stories of people who go through manipulation, where I wanted to talk about this one. What was it, Marsha? Risa Tisa. This recent thing about who did I marry, and when you look at stories, how the story is told, and when they relay the story, it is as if they're so convincing. They're so convincing about what has happened, and that they're not doing this, even though the person on the other end receiving it has said, this is the result, this is how I feel, this is what you're doing. But the effort of them, so great, masterful, if I can say that, to hear the stories of persons who have been on the end of gaslighting. um who wants to jump in there? Let's talk about it in relationships. What does it
Hmm.
really look like?
Let me swing the same thing as you. Let me use the same example. As I said, I'm starting on your toe. And we talking about this thing, gaslighting is not, once again, so don't want people to figure that, you might have done something once or twice, a person being manipulative. This one is where a person is strategically trying to discredit, manipulate, control.
Yeah.
They need there's a power and control element here. It is to psychologically break you down till you are looking at passerby shirt and the person said it's orange, and all of a sudden you doubt the color you're seeing. Like you start to lose sense of your reality. Yeah. So I'm standing on your toe, and you communicate. I'm standing on your toe, and I deny the fact that you're standing on your toe. Or if I stand on your toe, it can't be hurting you that bad, right? So I'm not even, the one thing might deny it actually happened. The other part is that I may actually say it can't be hurting you that bad. You overreacted, right? And let me swing this the other way now, where I didn't stand on her toe because there are people that use from the victim space to be a gaslighter. So I didn't even close to her toe, and all of a sudden you stand on my toe, and this and that, and all of a sudden, like, what are you talking about? And there's the crying and the tears and the tell pastor, but I can call the pastor, man, he keeps standing up on my toe, and I'm like, what are
And
you
like Kevin,
talking
they're
about?
sensitive, extremely sensitive, right?
There's not a sensitivity, it's manipulation now. There's total manipulation.
Yeah.
I'm like 2 feet away from your toe, right? So you know me, I'm not, but you're gonna convince everybody that I stood on your toe, and the story goes down that way. And so therefore people can use a victim position, because yes, a man can use his brawn or his voice, but in the woman's case, she can use her victim position to get that power and control. Yeah, because when a person use victim and aggression, you have no position at all with that. That's what makes that person gaslight. And what they do realistically is that they seek to mess with your emotions. They can see you there sitting calm, and they're going to find something to complain about, something to fret about, something to get you angry, upset, cry. And it's almost like it's the juice that they drink. That way you know it's something spiritual apart from a psychological component. There has to be a spiritual area here, because power and control is very much part of that. Insecurity and low self-esteem, I said, they have a defensive mechanism. I said a manipulative tendency. Psychology, they have emotional psychological issues. That's many things, because sometimes there's a DNA issue too. There's nature and nurture. Some
Yeah.
people actually have psychological issues,
Mhm.
right? Like
Explain that in terms of this situation, what it might look like.
where this a person may be intentionally doing something, yeah. So somebody may be intentionally doing this thing, some because of the brain, the mind has some imbalances, the chemicals are imbalanced, so therefore this person needs psychological help. This is not a rational person. This person does not have empathy. Their reality is skewed, yeah. So that person can have psychological and emotional damage. It could be DNA. You can look at the family history. Dad had this issue. Granddad had this issue. So this is not something you could communicate with. This is not something for therapy. This is not something that a counselor is going to sit down and change. Yes, it's either medicine or Jesus, or a combination of both. Yeah. So it is one, as you said earlier, alert behavior and culture and social tendencies. And we talk about that, where if you're raised in the environment, you can actually start to repeat this behavior. Yeah, because it becomes your new normal. You don't even know it is normal. And where females would legit use this on guys, where we talk about guys, girls, females actually going cheating on the guys, and telling him, that this is good for the relationship. Yeah, like this is a reality. Yeah, this is a reality. Yeah, and the guy eventually is convinced that this is good for the relationship, and it's like, what are you talking about? This like I know you're smiling, but this is a reality with gaslighting.
Like open relationships, when they come and talk about open relationships, that it's good to have. It helps
Yeah,
us to explore. It helps us to,
exactly. Yeah, and then
because there's
eventually the guy actually accepts the fact that this is actually something you want. And the main times you watch these situations, see a person there's like you can see something is going on that they have been so believing something that doesn't even make sense. Right? The girl convinced him, let's bring another girl into a relationship, and the two girls adding, he's saying, oh, they're watching them. Right? So it is like the psychological manipulation is that serious. That way, it's very much a sadistic component.
okay. Okay. Anyone wants to add anything else?
Well, I kind of want to look at it from the perspective of church, because sometimes, even with pastors, we normally think of pastors sometimes, well, some of as being manipulative, but sometimes the persons in the congregation are trying to manipulate the pastor and making the pastor feel as if he's unspiritual, and that they're more holy, more anointed, more spiritual than the pastor. And so they begin to make the pastor feel insecure, feel inferior, making question his leadership decisions, making question his relationship with God, his walk with God. And it's a form of gaslighting. In church, we will call it witchcraft and manipulation. And that's what our control and manipulation, spirit of control, witchcraft and manipulation. But even in that, and I can tell you, there are a lot of pastors that sometimes the board trying to manipulate the pastor, trying to get the pastor to do, and they have their devious ways of making the pastor second guess the decisions and so on. And any pastor could make an honest mistake, but they're going to find a way to know to magnify that mistake, begin to talk about how many people in the church are impacted and affected and so on, and start altering the statistics and start turning the tide of opinion. So there's a lot of manipulative behavior that happens in different situations, but victims don't automatically recognize that it is manipulative. Yeah. And some people may even say, well, I'm concerned about you. You know how much I love you. You're special to me. You are important to me. I will never set you wrong. I will never steer you in the wrong direction. I got you back. And they use all this flowery language to make you feel now that they're in your corner. But unfortunately, what they're trying to do is to manipulate you, because it's a control issue. And from the time now that they don't get the opportunity to control you, if you become aware of it and they don't get to control you anymore, all of a sudden they get very aggressive. They stand off and they want to put you down and do whatever. But it really can surface in a lot of different areas. If we look for it, we can find examples in our lives of people that were toxic, whether a parent, whether a pastor, a friend, and so
Right.
on. But
But Pastor, wait, that way I want to really finish it that way for because you jump for the pastor congregation. I want you give me examples of pastors doing this. I want to say to Alison Lewis. I want to say Alison
I
Lewis.
was going
I
to,
can't
I was
run
going
all
to
the
go there.
examples. I can't run all the examples, right? But I
Which are both
started
the
there.
company pastor extreme congregation. So say so eloquently gave us from the congregation. How could you, with your wisdom and your knowledge,
Right.
give us examples of
I
pastors?
really got to try to think about that one. But yeah, that's a good
It's
point.
not that hard, but go on.
All right. So, okay. So let's say, for example, I try to think here on the spot. Okay, like in the example of giving, right? So pastors can gaslight people, make them feel, well, you're not giving enough. I mean, I don't have a Rolls Royce, but no, I should have a mansion. You guys are spiritual. You guys don't really understand this thing.
That is an excellent example of it.
Manipulate,
Yes.
the congregation into giving more. That time the people tied into the hill, they give into the hill, they give in generously, but the pastor is making them feel like, hey, you ain't doing nothing, you ain't spiritual, you guys are immature, you're not being involved in the church. The person might be involved in 50 ministries. Oh, you're not committed enough. And so the idea is manipulation. Sometimes even in counseling relationships, where pastors take advantage of people sexually and say, well, hey, I'm doing this for your good. This will help your marriage, helping you to understand different aspects of sexual relationships and that kind of thing. So yeah, there are a number of different areas where uh, pastors are guilty, and because they have a position of power, as Marissa said, that's where it becomes particularly abusive, and there is a lot of spiritual abuse. We don't, we have good pastors,
Mhm.
definitely, but there
Yeah,
are
we do.
also some people that are emotionally hurt and they've never resolved that hurt and they gaslight their congregation members.
As we talk here, and it's for us to really understand when we do it, if it happens, and to be aware. Because gaslighting for me, I think, is so toxic that it destroys people. And as Kevin made a statement that, they lose their sense of who they are. And that's the important thing. Because one thing I've long learned is that everyone is not as emotionally strong as the other person. They're not as emotionally and psychologically aware, and as Sinclair likes to talk about, the emotional intelligence of it all. Many people are not aware of sometimes when someone is doing this thing to them. So we've talked about it. What are some of the pointers, if we can? And Kevin has been quite quiet there. Please feel free to jump in.
No, I'm still kind of stuck on the church aspect of things that, that especially, that the offering, the part when these pastors come and they want you to give special offering. I find it that sometimes there's a great level of manipulative tactics that's being used, and you'll probably leave church sometimes even questioning your own walk with God. Like, am I being a good Christian? Because when they're done with you, and to pull that money out of your pocket, when they're done with you, you leave church. If you did not do what they requested, you would leave church questioning your relationship with God. I've been in situations before where, and a church sister said this to me: if you don't have the money to pay when they request a special offering of whatever amount, don't put it on your credit card. That's not your money. That's the people, their money. So I would put myself in debt because I don't want to leave church feeling bad and feeling like I'm not fulfilling my responsibility as a part of the church, and this is a cry that comes from the leadership, and I'm not doing it. So sometimes you leave church feeling less than, and you're being gaslit from the pulpit. And I think for many of us, now that we are actually looking in depth on what it looks like, we can honestly say that many times we do experience being gaslit from the pulpit. And some of our pastors have unfortunately coined this as a part of their tactics to get what they want from the people. Because at the end of the day, if we bring God into it, oh my goodness, we can manipulate people using God, eh? If we bring God into it, and like Pastor Bino says, even in counseling relation situation, pastors use it to manipulate church sisters into even sexual activities and stuff. Because when you the thing about one of the thing about the gaslighting issue is that it's normally the people that we look to. So it's not just any person that we look down on. It's the person that we look up to has the potential to gaslight us most of the times, because we hang on their every word, and we see them as the authority figures in life. So in our church, it's a pastor. In our life, it might be our parents or our boss. So when we look up to them, that puts them in the position to gaslight us easily.
And I just want to jump there, where, and that's one of the reasons we need mentorship, especially we talk about kingdom of God. Because cause we not bash the church if we say we have good leaders, but we must understand we can't rest on our laurels and say, 80% good, 20% bad. So we're not dogging and saying a totality. However, behaviors that are showing And we told no, you add Christianity, so you add your spiritual component. Because it mean I'm not budging because I got Jesus. You know what I mean? Or don't touch the Lord anointed or whatever. I can add that to it now for you not to move. So it not might just be pastor, maybe other leaders in church. Yeah, it may be, you have your deacons or your elders in the church, worship leader, or some person now, that is in a pivotal position that is closely linked to the leader. And then therefore, by the time you go in the meeting, this person is denying everything or twisting the facts. And therefore, you don't have a voice because this person now is denying that they said it in the meeting. They're denying that it actually happened, and this could cause a lot of church hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because here's a person though that is trying to grow in God and looking up to these persons. And now here comes this person that is using deny, as we usually say, like deny past events. And you're this saying, but pastor, whoever, a person know that did not happen. You know what I mean? And they bring information that is not there or doesn't exist, and they twist any facts and trivializing your feelings. You're trying to say to this person, "This is how I feel." You shout you shout at me in front of people, right? Like it's wanting to correct me, but why do you have to shout at me as a grown person? We're not children here. Yes, you're the leader of the worship team. Yes, you are the deacon, the elder. But why it is that you have to castigate me in front of others, and not willing to say sorry, or oh, you're too sensitive, or you do this or do that. And as I'm talking about is that this projecting onto people or twisting the facts, blaming the other, stating something, and then saying I didn't say, right? That is harmful. Because the kingdom God allowing Jesus to point out, because by the time using Marissa's point, if I'm standing on her toe, I apologize. Yeah. And I asked her about how she felt about it, or if I know, to assist beyond just saying sorry. Because if we get sorry, that is not necessarily gaslighting, but but that's not addressing correctly how she feels, which is different to, pause and, well, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, and da 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 da. And I think that my heart desires for us as kingdom people to have more empathy with people.
No, as you're talking about that, and we bring it back to relationships, even as we talk about the church, because the church is a whole different ball game when it comes to authoritarian authority and leadership and being free to say what they want to say. Because I know there are some leaders that will tell you, this is my pulpit. I'm free to say what I want to say. So therefore, you can take it and receive it however you want. But if the Lord has given me that word, I'm going to release it.
That's
That's
toxic. That's toxic,
that's
really.
what leaders will say, because to be honest, that's their pulpit. So that's
Yes,
their place
Well,
to
well,
speak.
well. The thing is,
It's not.
Marissa,
It's God's
the
pulpit.
thing is, Marissa, that it really
It's
isn't
God's
our
pulpit.
pulpit. It's God's pulpit, and we have a responsibility before God to treat God's people with respect. And I think that's one of the challenge. Jesus was always a shepherd. I mean, he could be hard with his disciples. He would rebuke them, but he never attempted to control or manipulate them. He was always a shepherd. And a shepherd looks out for the welfare of the flock, which includes their spiritual welfare, the emotional welfare, their financial welfare, their social welfare. So that's the heart of a pastor. I look out for my people. But you have some pastors that they are wounded, they are hurt. They've been traumatized in their youth, they've been traumatized in the ministry, in the church, but they've never resolved it. Some have never gone for counseling and said, well, look, I need help or whatever. And so they adopt this authoritarian style of leadership. And it is very reminiscent of the Pharisees. And a lot of times we don't recognize in ministry that we're more like the Pharisees than we are like Jesus. Yeah, because Jesus he said was meek, and he said, "Take my yoke up upon you and learn of me." So pastors, even people in leadership in pastoral ministry, they need therapy to be able to resolve some of the issues. And I think we need to look seriously at that whole accountability, counseling, mentoring, nurturing. We need to create that kind of environment because pastors many times are isolated, and that is very, very dangerous. So when you have a pastor who's emotionally hurt, ministering from that place of emotional hurt, they do a lot of damage. A lot of gaslighting takes place, and they rationalize it. They use scripture to justify it, but really it's toxic. It's toxic, and
Yeah.
they need help and they need healing. Yeah.
Oh Lord, I know Sinclair wants to jump in there. Go quickly because I
I,
want to bring
I
it
will.
back.
I will. No,
I want to
because
bring it back to our
one of the things
relationships.
that people, and I want to say this, that one of the titles that Jesus has is Counselor. Yeah, a mighty God, wonderful Counselor, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So people make it seem like counseling this horrible thing, like, oh, if you have Jesus, you don't need counseling, right? And that is the suit for manipulative behavior, because then it's like you become the third, the fourth part of the Trinity, right? So God has to speak to me because I am on the top of the pyramid. But we, until I think we have the grace to understand that as a shepherd, you're actually at the bottom. We still have a hierarchy mentality. We have a pyramid scheme mentality. So I'm top of the totem pole and you grow under me. Yeah. But we have still to shift our mindset. We are at the bottom and we place people under us. That we talked about understanding last time. And we're supposed to have people elevated. Yeah, we're supposed to elevate people. As Jesus said, greater things than these will you do. Why do I want people that are I'm shepherding to be greater than me? Because they keep me accountable. But we don't want anybody to keep us accountable. You get what I'm saying to you? Because if I'm raising up people that are growing in the spirit, yeah. So I know when this person came in, they're growing in the spirit, and even though they're hearing from God and different things, and they have more people around me that are so deep in the spirit, it keeps me in check. I may not always be in a position I may be drifting.
Yeah.
However, because if I'm at the top of the totem pole, you can't tell me nothing because I hear God for myself. Yes, and I very close to the heavenly realm. You at the bottom. I right there, but by the firmament. I'm there. I just go up to the top, and I think that's when we go off hinges. That many times as leaders, the devil waits until we are highly elevated to bring those things that we did not deal with out, and hurt people, hurt others, hurt easily, and hurt themselves. And I think that is where we need to, even if, as part we have leaders, I think they should get counseling, and I don't think they should just be counseled by the pastors. I think they should have counseling, looking at anger. If you have anger management issues, child issues, because you may not want to bear all your issues with the leader. I think those things need to be dealt with if you're going to lead my people, because we're not going to be bleeding on other people in the church. And I think that would help a lot.
So then we talk about the counseling. Now it's now 8:25. I really wanted to end on the topic of, and maybe this may need to be a part two. How do I identify if I am the victim of gaslighting? And then how can I identify if I'm the perpetrator of gaslighting? I really want us to look at some phrases that are really used, often used when it comes to gaslighting. And I want to look at the mindset that, how you're left feeling after, that encounter with that person. Is it that they're gaslighting, or is it that they're speaking the truth and you don't want to hear the truth? Which spectrum does it fall under? So I really wanted to end on that point. However, I am glad that from our comments, both live and private, that persons have been able to have some light shed, um, have some light shed on the whole issue of gaslighting, because the reality is that even though these new phrases have been coined over the last year or so, it has really exposed a lot of toxic behavior. And sometimes people who are the victims of it have accepted it as norm. They've accepted it as a norm. And when we are aware of it, then we're better able to know what we should accept, what we shouldn't accept, what we tolerate, what we shouldn't tolerate, and also to change behavior, because sometimes you may not be aware that you are the one that's doing it, or that you are doing it. So here, Allison says part two. So for me, I really wanted to address that, but I think that we've had some light shed and some eyes have been opened this evening. Um, do your research also, so that next week when we come back again for part two, you're better able to make your contributions. And as we share, you can share your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you not agree with what the gentleman and the panel say this evening? So that's been today's edition of Men on Monday. And yes, we'll have part two. Is that what Jason is saying? You want part two, Jason? So next week, Monday, God willing, we'll be here for another edition of Gaslighting. And we're looking at what does it look like? You know, What are some of the big phrases? But before you go, hit that like button and share our live stream. Share this with someone on your feed. I'm telling you, it will bring great knowledge and revelation and change of life. So that has been today's edition of Men on Monday. Thanks to Minister Sinclair. Thanks to you very much. Minister Kevin, thank you very much. Pastor Bino. And we offer apologies for Bishop Mark, who is away on clerical duties tonight and not being able to join us. But God willing, we'll be able to have our show, have him join us again next week. So those of you who are on YouTube, thank you so much. I'm Marissa Boyce, been your host for today's edition of Men on Monday. God bless you. Have a great one. And we look forward to next week's show, Gaslighting Part 2. Are you a gaslighter? Join us.
Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families.